Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our 2021 to 2022 election, AAJA election candidate forum. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really happy that all of the candidates could also make time to join us today. We have Michelle Lee running for re-election for president, and we also have Julia B. Chan and Jonathan Choe running for VP of Civic Engagement, and Jin Ding and Ravi Kapoor running for VP of Finance. So just to give you an overview of the structure of this call, if you are a member listening in, please stay on mute so that we don't get any background noise when the candidates are speaking. Each candidate will get 2 minutes for an introduction, and then we'll move into questions. Each candidate will get 1 minute to respond to each question, so it's going to be really quick. And then we'll get 2 minutes for each candidate for a closing statement. And we got a lot of questions from you all in the question submission form. So unfortunately, I don't think we'll have time for questions live, but please let us know if you have any other questions afterwards. And I think that's about it. So let's start with Michelle for introductions, and then we'll move into VP of Civic Engagement with Julia first, and then Jonathan. And finally, we'll have the VP of Finance candidates go with their introductions, Jin first, and then Ravi. So Michelle, go ahead.
Thanks, everyone. Hey, I'm Michelle Lee. I'm the current AAJA president, and I'm running for re-election. I joined AAJA when I was 18 years old as a college freshman, and since then, AAJA has become my family and a huge part of my career and my personal life, and I've been giving back for that reason. In my first term, I've led AAJA through huge organizational and national and global challenges and changes. I hired our new executive director. This year, AAJA faced a potential $500,000 deficit because of the recession and the pandemic. Under my leadership and under the leadership of our executive director, we have avoided that potential financial hit, and we are financially strong and stable. I led our organization's response to the racism from coronavirus aimed at our AAPI community, and I have advocated for our members with executives from every major broadcast company, every major newspaper and digital company. We're growing and we're thriving despite all of this uncertainty around us with the pandemic and with the economy and with the uncertainties in our industry. I've accomplished a lot in my first term, and I'm running for a second term to help AAJA level up in our work. I want AAJA to become more relevant, more visible, and more influential. And even though I'm running unopposed, I do not take your vote for granted. Please know that I'm listening and I'm here to grow and take your feedback and really take it to heart and learn from it and help our organization grow from it. I've been getting a lot of helpful feedback and ideas over the past couple weeks, and I hope to hear more from you as the weeks go on and the election ends. I would really appreciate your vote and your support.
I'll go ahead, Shirley. Hi, everyone. My name is Julia B. Chan, and the two things I'd want you to take away from this forum today is that I'm a builder and a bridge. 4 years ago, I ran for office at the local level because I discovered that the San Francisco Bay Area chapter was inactive. Membership had fallen so much that my home chapter, a chapter that at one time was one of AAJA's largest, had dropped down to medium status, and that sense of community that was once so strong was lost. As president, my sole goal was to re-engage and reinvigorate the chapter. So through direct outreach with membership, we worked with folks to develop programming and events that really fit their needs and appealed to the larger journalism community here. We let folks in the Bay Area know that we were back, we're here, and we're doing valuable work. So through building engagement and bridging these disconnects due to past disengagement, folks renewed and joined our ranks, and we were able to restore our chapter back up to large chapter status. During this time, I also developed our live annual fundraiser, which is called Hella Asian, that's raised over $20,000 to date. It's a live storytelling event featuring AAPI journalists, performers, media makers, storytellers, and we sold out 2 years in a row now. And just to really hit on something special, It's now a template that can and will continue, and is a format that other organizations want to experiment with. There's talk of a Hella Latina actually coming soon. As for my journalism experience, I worked at a newspaper, a magazine, an investigative long-form outlet, and now I'm at KQED as a managing editor for California's largest public media newsroom, one of the most listened to public media stations, public radio stations, and most watched public television station in the country. In each of these roles, I've bridged the legacy and new media divide, the editorial and business divide, and the cultural divide. Some of you may also know me from the Journalists of Color Slack, a community of journalists from around the world united in support for one another as POCs in the newsroom. We are now over 2,100 strong. So remember, I build and I bridge, and that's what we're going to talk about today. This is what I've done my whole career, and you might say it's what the B in my name stands for. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Jonathan Choe. I am a crime and justice reporter at KOMO News. And I would say that if you were to take anything away from my platform and what I'm about, I am a listener and an advocate. My whole career, I've been the underdog, always doubted wherever I've gone. So I've had to fight my way to get on air in Chicago, Minneapolis, Boston, and now Seattle, Washington. And it's been a privilege to know that I haven't been able to do any of this on my own. And I've done it through a family called the Asian American Journalists Association. For nearly 20 years, I have had mentors. I have had access to news directors, hiring managers because of this organization. And now it's time for me to give back. I've been toiling away behind the scenes in the local chapters. I've been asked several times to run for national office, but I've declined every single time because I truly believed in one of my pillars, and that's mentoring. And I wanted to show you one of the awards I'm most proud of. That basically is AAJA Mentor of the Year that I got several years ago. And I did it because I spent time, one person at a time, building, encouraging, and recognizing it's about giving back to others, not just taking from this organization. So as I move forward, if I am elected as Vice President of Civic Engagement, I want to let you know I will fight for you. I want to let you know that I will listen to every one of your needs and concerns, and I promise that the national board will hear you loud and clear. And let me be very clear right now. We need to turn things around. The local chapters, including Asia, need to have the most prominent voice, not the other way around. AAJA National, AAJA, the board is supposed to be serving us. Let's reinvigorate the local chapters. When is the last time someone reached out to you as a leader and asked, what can we do for you? That's my platform, and you're going to be hearing more about that moving forward. Thank you.
Should I start? Hi, everyone. My name is Jen, and I am running for VP of Finance in this election. I am a co-founder and affinity group leader of AAJ's Women and Non-Binary Voices. I am also co-chairing this year's virtual convention. I started my journalism career in China as a sport journalist. I was an Olympic correspondent in London, and I started in nonprofit journalism nearly 8 years ago with Pulitzer Center, and now with the International Women's Media Foundation as the program manager. I manage over $1 million grants and training programs that are similar size with AAJA. I know AAJA from inside out. As a convention chair and the affinity group leader, I would like to combine those knowledge and experience all together and serve as AAJA's next VP of Finance. If elected, I would like to improve AAJ's financial health in 3 ways. First is growing our membership, clearly define what our membership value is, and implement an onboarding and a retention system, empowering our community building through efficient data sharing with our affinity group and chapter leaders. We need to treat our members as donors from day one. The second way I want to do is diversify our funding resources to build on our fundraising ability through our annual convention. At the same time, attract funding to support AAJ's signature programs and better position ourselves ourselves with corporate sponsors. The third part I want to do is to build a long-term investment strategy for AAJA to reprioritize the endowment fund that was established by past President Mei Chan and Esther Wu. With the 7% of return from this endowment, we will be able to fund all AAJ's current signature program, including ELP, JCamp, and Voices. We can free our capacity to support more year-long programming, as well as help our members to grow. AAJA need leaders that can see the organization's future beyond the next 5 to 10 years. And in the later part, I would like to dive in more into my unique experience in journalism nonprofit and my understanding of AAJA to help us to grow in the next 2 years. I have a tracking record in AAJA to connect members to funding resources and also closing sponsors. I get things done and done well. So I would like to earn your support for me to be next VP of Finance of AAJA. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ravi Kapoor. I am also running for Vice President of Finance this year here at AAJA. I've been a 20-year member of AAJA. My first conference was back in San Francisco at a time I just graduated from Syracuse University. Today, I run a group of television stations in San Francisco, Chicago, Orlando, and 3 stations in North Dakota. In addition, I have a television network in a dozen cities serving the South Asian community. What I've done most recently, I'm very proud of, is diversifying the airwaves, buying television stations that were basically failing and showcasing the diversity of each local community. So in San Francisco, we started with 1 Vietnamese channel. Today, there are 15. We started with our Indian American network, and now that has spread to 12 cities. We've launched Korean programming, Taiwanese programming, Chinese programming. We've had Filipino programming, African American programming. In North Dakota, we have the first Native American channel. So when it comes to dealing with folks at the local level where you have marginalized communities, I have a long track record of more than a decade. My history at AAJA goes back 20 years now, and so when I started as a student, I really struggled to get a job, and I understand, especially in this environment, with the pandemic going on, there have actually been now 3 downturns in my career alone, and I remember entering as a student, having a very hard time getting a job. That's why what I want to do is bolster AAJA's financials, and while I understand AAJA has been fairly steady. I've looked at the financials over the last decade, and we're usually at the $1 to $1.5 million level, which means that we can just maintain status quo. We need to accelerate that. The Asian American community is the most affluent community in the United States, and yet we haven't tapped into our own base. I'm based in Silicon Valley, where a lot of Asian Americans are powering some of the best startups in the country. We need to tap into those resources. We also need to tap into the resources that are not availing themselves to AAJA. The biggest broadcasters in the country, people like Sinclair, Nexstar, they are clients of mine, and yet they don't support AAJA. We need to turn that around and change that dichotomy right away. Moreover, we're not doing enough for our radio broadcasters, our audio journalists, folks getting into podcasting, and of course the data journalists. We have all this next generation technology that's out there. We're not leveraging it. I want to not just fund an endowment that's been widely ignored and been created decades ago. We need to bolster that, and what I'm going to propose is creating an endowment worth $10 million. We got to set our sights high. I don't want AAJA to be left behind by the other groups that are out there. We need to lead this discussion, and we will if I have your vote.
All right, thank you everyone for your introductions. We are going to move into some general questions, and then I'll move into questions for VP of Civic Engagement and then VP of Finance. And again, please keep your responses to under a minute. We're going to be keeping time with an alarm, so you'll hear an alarm go off once your time is up. So for everybody, and we can go in the same speaking order, could you each please share why you're running for national office and what you hope to bring to the organization, starting with Michelle?
I'm running for national office for a second term as president because I want to make sure that our organization is on a path of stability and growth over the next 2 years and beyond. Right now, it's a very tumultuous time in many different ways within our organization. All of our members are experiencing a lot of challenges in their jobs and in their personal lives. And even across the country and around the globe, there are a lot of challenges that we're just facing together. And I believe that I am the right candidate for this position because I have built my experience, volunteering experience throughout the organization. I started as a student leader and then as a chapter leader, national secretary, and then senior vice president. I helped start affinity groups, and I have learned our entire organization from every vantage point possible. And with this experience and with the help of the very experienced leaders around me who help me and support this organization, I believe that I can lead our organization to really greater heights over the next 2 years and beyond.
Hey everyone, I am running for national office, first and foremost because I love AAJA. I don't think I would be a good VP of finance. I don't know that I would be the best VP of programming. For me, VP of civic engagement specifically is a very deliberate and intentional decision. It is a role I think I would be very good at because at the heart of it, AAJA is member focused. And this is work that I want to be doing in order for us to return back to that mission. I think a lot of us here have been on listening tours and are talking to a lot of folks and hearing from a lot of folks. This kind of work, when I talk about creating a culture of deep listening, this kind of work can't just happen around elections. We need to be creating systems and spaces for this dialogue to happen on a more consistent basis so that membership has a voice on the board, so that leadership hears a voice and decisions are both inspired, iterated, and informed by them. And so because this is very analogous to the work that I do in newsrooms about newsrooms becoming more audience focused, inviting audiences to the editorial table in order for us to earn loyalty, trust, and just create better journalism that actually reflects the community. Does AAJA reflect its membership? That is a huge pillar that I believe in out of the three that civic engagement really stands for, which is accurate representation being one, second being media access, and I truly believe third being membership engagement. That is a huge reason why I'm running, so thanks very much. That was about a minute.
The reason why I'm running for AAJA Vice President of Civic Engagement is because I was reminded by my base, my supporters, my mentors, that I've already been doing this at the local level. And my voice, my experience, my perspective was now needed at the national level, especially during this time that the entire industry is going through a deep transition. One of the main areas that I'm most passionate about is Media Watch. And this role, VP of Civic Engagement, will be overseeing one of the most important groups within the entire organization. I've served 2 years already on Media Watch, and I already have the endorsement of the co-chair, Sephan Kim, and one of the members, Bobby Calvan. I want to tell you what I did. I'm not just about coming up with new, fresh ideas. I'm about taking action. And when I was in Boston at NBC, a couple years ago when NBC had the Olympics, they deliberately chose to mispronounce the name of a Korean host city called Pyeongchang. Because many of their broadcasters couldn't say Pyeongchang, rather Pyeongchang, they decided to say Pyeongchang. They felt it was easier to say. And what I want to do, as I've always done, is I want to make sure that our organization isn't always responding to situations after the fact. I want to get ahead of the problem. And that's what we did in this case. We contacted from the local level through AAJ in New England. We put out a pronouncer guide. We contacted NBC, and we gave them an opportunity. This was deeply offensive to Korean Americans, Koreans, and the Asian American community. Yet they decided to ignore it. And when they did, we didn't just stop. We decided to put them on blast. We went to the Washington Post. They put out a commentary saying it was wrong. AAJA mobilized and put out a video. And we let them have an opportunity, yet they chose to ignore it. To this day, that's one of the greatest moments, being a part of Media Watch, being a part of this organization, that I want to always talk about, because we can never let something like that happen again. And if it does, I assure you, we will speak, we will take action. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I am running because I responded to the needs of AAJA all the time. Just like I responded to the after Me Too movement, and also the media industry needed women voices than ever, we established the first women non-binary group in AAJA as a affinity group. And I responded when AAJA needs someone to help them with this year's convention. Even despite with the COVID-19, we're moving everything online virtually. We spend hours and hours every single week to build this programming for our members. I respond because this year, when I see AAJA's current financial model is heavily relied on convention programming, I noticed that we needed to build on our general operating budget. And I come from a nonprofit background. I know exactly what that means. I know exactly how to build an endowment fund because I was there when Pulitzer Center started its first endowment fund. And now they have over $10 million in that fund. So I think for me, running for AAJA's VP of Finance is because my knowledge is exactly in this arena, and I really want to help AAJA to grow. AAJA has helped me like incredibly in my career, and I now do basically 24/7 job on media inclusion and diversity, and I would like to extend that help to AAJA members, and also just really help our members to grow in the way they would like to be. Without a healthy financial standing with AAJA in the long term, we would not get there. So that's why I'm running. Thank you.
I'm running for AAJA VP of Finance because I was pulled into this by a number of senior members in AAJA who understood the experience that I have within the organization, the context, the sense that there were folks in the organization that have been around for a long time that have been left behind. Let's face it, some of the positions that were at the national board level were actually disregarded and changed. And a lot of folks feel that they've been marginalized in recent years. And so I see that with a lot of senior journalists. Now, I have a very strong understanding of financial accounting. I have built from scratch 6 television stations without outside capital, and they're all profitable. They're all doing well. Today, we have 57 channels that we run nationally. Moreover, my experience with AAJA is not just lended to business background. I actually was the point person dealing with KTVU when the Asiana Airlines gaffe happened. And if you don't recall, they literally put racial slurs of Asian Americans on the air. And it was very challenging for journalists to confront KTVU, which is a very powerful TV station, because most of the journalists, frankly, looked at KTVU as a good landing spot for a job. I went in there, confronted them with my friend Lingwu Liu, and not only did we get them to put together a program on the Asian American experience, they actually hired someone, a community liaison, after our talk with them. And it was a very stern discussion that frankly led KTVU to get sold to Fox. It was that serious a situation. So when it comes to challenging situations, dealing with the biggest media companies in the world, I have that experience in the C-suite level to go there and frankly ask for what AAJA deserves. That's what you'll get with me.
Great, thank you everyone. The next question is also for everybody. What is the biggest challenge our organization, AAJA, is facing, and how do you plan to tackle it?
I assume in the same order. Okay. The AAJA faces several challenges that are unique to AAJA as well as very much shared across the industry. Among the unique challenges that AAJA faces currently is our ability to represent all of our members during this really unstable time and really anticipate the needs that they'll have in the next coming years without knowing exactly what those needs are going to be. It's almost like trying to read the future from a crystal ball as best as we could. We thrive by the input from our chapter and affinity group leaders who help us inform this work at AAJA. And I'm really heartened to hear all of the great ideas that have already come out here. I know there have been some concerns about the number of members that we've been able to retain this year because everyone has been experiencing such a hard time financially. We have not made a major membership push. Luckily, it's all coming back with registrations around convention and around this election. And I hope that we're able to really grow our membership even greater the next coming years and do a better job making sure all of their needs are represented throughout all of our programs and all of our initiatives.
I think the biggest challenge AAJA faces is one very similar to one that I face as a managing editor, which is we are now at a time where there are 3, 4, arguably 5 generations of journalists in our newsrooms and in our organization. And as a managing editor, I need to figure out the best ways to support folks from across the generational gap, the cultural gap, and all of that. I think as an organization at AAJA, we need to as well. I think, well, actually here, let's make this a little interactive. How many folks here know off the top of your head what year AAJA was founded? No Googling. Michelle does. Doris does. Okay, well, I do too, because it was the same year I was born. So me and AAJA, we are turning 40 next year, and we are at this pivotal moment that in which we really need to make sure that folks across the spectrum feel supported and represented. And I think a lot of us, that is not what we're hearing right now. And so that is our biggest challenge. And the way I would like to tackle that is to develop a culture of deep listening, of finding tangible ways to bring folks together around topics that we care about, whether it's programming, whether it's events, whether it's being proactive about Media Watch. We shouldn't just be reactive when bad things happen. We should also provide resources and training that will help us get in front of the problems. My number one question as president and as serving on the national board was questions from journalists asking, how do I pronounce Pyeongchang? How do I frame this story around Asian Americans? How do I talk about this issue in Guam? And we are in a position to serve those needs in a way that makes sense. If folks are familiar with our website, we have a style guide on there now. I think it deserves to be revisited, and I have a lot of ways in which we can do that. And it's something tangible on that we can really unite not only AAJA on, but other organizations, especially minority journalism organizations. Thanks.
A few of the greatest challenges right now that AAJA faces are some problems and challenges I've been trying to tackle already at the local level. And it also applies at the national level. And that's the fact that some of our local chapters have become zombie chapters. In other words, they're not functioning. You'll have people with titles of president and vice president, but they're not engaging the community. And we really need to engage and serve our AAPI, local nonprofits, schools, people who need our help. And I've done that in Boston already, and I want to bring that to every single chapter. In Boston, what we did was that we held a forum where we brought journalists from every single platform, television, newspapers, radio, digital, multi-platform, and we brought nonprofit leaders into the same room. And we asked the nonprofit leaders, what can we do to help you tell your story? And then the nonprofit leaders asked us, what can we do to be experts in your stories? And that's the type of bridge building, community building that this VP of Civic Engagement role will require. That's what's going to reinvigorate and help our local chapters refocus on the communities that they serve. And when is the last time we as national ever reached out to local leaders to say, what can we do to bring more training, resources? Let's fly you out somewhere. AAJA is doing well financially. Why can't we invest in our leaders instead of just asking them to keep giving back to this organization? That's what I want to focus on. The other great challenge that AAJA faces that I've already started working on is that we are walking alone. We used to have a convention called Unity. We put out a statement saying we stand with Black Lives Matter. Yet do we really? When we're not doing life with our Black brothers and sisters, our Hispanic brothers and sisters, I reached out already to former NABJ President Sarah Glover, and she gave me some tremendous insight because I went to her with the posture of saying, I don't know what happened because I wasn't at the national level, but I want to say I'm sorry on behalf of AAJA and being asleep at the wheel, being unaware that we are now alone at these conventions, that recruiters don't prioritize us anymore, that we are losing members because we're walking alone, and we can't do that in this culture. And Sarah Glover said to me, thank you, Jonathan. I don't know if we're going to have a convention anytime soon, but let's start walking again. Let's start advocating for each other. And Media Watch has already sent out several statements creating a multi-ethnic front, a united front We cannot walk alone anymore. I don't know how we got to this point. And the beauty of this is I already know Dorothy Tucker. She is the new president of NABJ. She mentored me in Chicago when I was a young reporter working for Tribune. She's currently at CBS, a veteran reporter. And she said, Jonathan, it's been a long time since someone at AAJ reached out to me. Those are the issues that I'm going to be fighting for. We can't do this alone.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to cut in and say the alarm feature we've been using hasn't seemed to be working. So I'm just going to cut in and interrupt once your minute is up. Go ahead, Jin.
Hey everyone, I think AAJ faced new financial challenges that is surfaced by this pandemic. You know, the traditional foundation support and sponsorships are just turning into new directions for us. And we are current this year, we are heavily relied on convention as in the past, but we are exceeding our goals in terms of sponsorship. We are short on membership and also paid convention registrations that we would like to increase in the future. I would like to make it, you know, my responsibility to find new opportunities for our organization with the urgency of, you know, AAPI representation and discussion around raising newsrooms being, you know, at the front and center across the country. We've already established a strong economy, a foundation for our organization, but we would like to build on that success at a time of crisis and, you know, building up the capacity for more, you know, meaningful services for our members. And we cannot achieve that without a strong financial foundation for our organization. That's why I keep going back to, you know, the three things I want to build, which is, you know, grow our membership, diversify our funding resources, as well as building a long-term investment plan for AAJA. Thank you.
I want to echo the sentiments that Jonathan had, namely because part of AAJ's challenge is what is the relevance of the organization moving forward, especially once you get past the student stage and you get into the mid-career. We've lost hundreds of mid-career and veteran journalists over the years. Many of them were actually amazed to hear from us that we're running for AAJ because at a certain point, the programs don't mesh with your needs, and that needs to change. So we need to support our local chapters in a much more aggressive way, coming up with new fundraising techniques. There are many sponsors in every local market that want to support us, but we have to do simple outreach. I think Julia brought up a great point about the San Francisco chapter contracting. There was a number of us, there was real continuity and leadership in San Francisco for almost a decade. When all of us stepped off the board and we had new folks, there was no continuity and leadership, and we lost all of those sponsors from the past, and it takes a while to rebuild that. So we need to have real structure. And part of what I want to do in this role as VP of Finance is rebuild the infrastructure from top to bottom at the local level, at the national level, make sure our local chapters are getting enough funding sources, making sure the national level efforts are getting additional funding sources, not just strictly from nonprofits, which we will tap into, not just strictly from the existing sponsors we have, but there's a wide swath of folks that would support AAJ if we did simple outreach. And that's been a huge challenge. And that's what I can do is expand the platform. And I want AAJ to be self-sustaining. And part of what we can do is we had a program called Catalyst instituted a couple of years ago. Now I've heard it's been treading water. We're not making money with Catalyst. Catalyst can be a program where we can finance our own entrepreneurs and have some of that equity, potentially say 1%, go back to AAJA to fund future projects, and therefore AAJA will be self-sustaining for decades to come.
All right, thank you, everyone. Now we're going to move into questions for VP of Civic Engagement candidates. And just so you know, we're going to start in one order and then rotate the speaker order for every question. So Julia is going to go first for this question, and then Jonathan will go first for the next question, etc. We'll have 4 questions for this position. So the first question is, what do you believe the role of AAJA should be in ensuring fair coverage and addressing misinformation that harms AAPI communities? How would your experiences inform your work in this role?
Thanks, Shirley. That is, there's a lot of parts of that question, so I'll tackle the first piece first. So AAJA's role is essentially some of the infrastructure we see now. I think a lot of what we've done the last couple of years and my experience on the board and a lot of the stories that we've shared today really point to the fact that we have a very strong media watch. We have folks, I think at one point, the media watch was about like 65 people strong. I mean, this is something that we all care about, and folks are very willing to, you know, wave a flag when something happens. And so how can we improve upon our current infrastructure as far as flagging, addressing, and then building accountability? That I think is something that we, you know, we work with what we got. Now, what I think we could do better about is the front end piece of this, to be, how can we be more proactive? If our style guide on AAPI issues, language, and framing, if that became a resource that media companies look to, and that we were able to substantiate ourselves as the expert, as the go-to folks for these kinds of questions, I think that will help us to mitigate a lot of what we see day in and day out, which, you know, it's not to disregard the work that Media Watch is doing, but if we're actually able to stop it before it starts, I think that is something that I would like to see AAJA do more of, or attempt to. I think there's a lot of experimentation in this space that we could be doing more of. Thanks.
You could ask the question one more time, please, Shirley.
Sure. So the question is, what do you believe the role of AAJA should be in ensuring fair coverage and addressing misinformation that harms AAPI communities? And how would your experiences inform your work in this role?
Got it. Thank you for that question. Again, I go back to my time working in Boston, serving Boston, Minneapolis, Chicago, and now Seattle. And I've seen it time and time again. A lot of our local chapters are our eyes and ears in the community. We have to focus on that. That is our lifeblood. That is where we're going to get member engagement, not necessarily at the national level from a boardroom. It's about relationships, not necessarily even more information being pumped into the community, guys. I am going to go to every single local chapter and ask, who are your relationships with in the community? Which nonprofits, which community advocacy groups are already doing the work? How can we get behind them and help? I think it's really that simple. We're just not doing it nationally across the board. So I want to reinvigorate our local chapters, reinvigorate the relationships already there, and build new relationships. We aren't an organization that just dumps all of our problems on Media Watch. That's the last thing we need to be doing. We need to be asking all of our members, what can we do to be a part of the solution? And I believe in regards to member engagement, that's going to bring our members back. People want to live and do their job for purpose and meaning. What better way than to serve our community and fulfill our calling at the same time? I'm focused on that. I'm doubling down on relationship building in our communities, not pumping out more information. This is one of the most information saturated generations we've ever been a part of. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, Jonathan will be responding to first. What will you do to make sure AAJA and or Media Watch lead the industry in providing resources for covering AAPI communities?
Well, it's a perfect segue from my last point I was making. Yes, I think we need to update the AAJA handbook. That's something that's been in the works now for quite some time. I really want to solidify that in the next year or two to really commit to doing that. And I want to thank Michelle, Bobby Calvan, the people who have already laid the foundation and have been working on that. At the same time, a lot of people don't know who Media Watch is made up of, what Media Watch is. We need to go back into our newsrooms and let them know we're not just a watchdog. We're actually a resource, a partner. We're here to help empower your newsroom. I want to change the posture of what Media Watch is at the end of the day. We're not just here to put people on blast. And from my 2 years of experience serving there, the most effective results happened when we went to each newsroom, each news director, each publisher and said, we're here to partner with you. We're here to walk with you. How can we make your news organization better? That's the perspective I'm taking. And I believe I've already seen the results in every chapter that I've worked for and I have served with that type of strategy.
Shirley, can I have you repeat the question again?
Sure. So the question is, what will you do to make sure AAJA and/or Media Watch lead the industry in providing resources for covering AAPI communities?
Thanks. So a lot of folks have heard me talk about the handbook and the style guide. And it, again, is just a very tangible resource that we could be working on. Something that I have been doing in the last couple of months at KQED is updating our framing and style guides around the civil uprisings since the death of George Floyd. We have been updating our style and language guidelines around coronavirus. This has been work done on a local level and at a national level with NPR. And in a lot of ways, KQED is leading that work. In a lot of ways, I think AAJA can be leading that work. A lot of folks are updating their style guides. We see AP capitalizing the B. We hear talking about whether or not we should capitalize W. Words matter. At the heart of everything that we do day in and day out are the words that we use and the stories that we tell and the way we frame those stories. So I think based on that and the passion I have for doing that kind of work, that needs to be an integral piece of this job. And that one thing that we can do with Media Watch is to ensure that these resources are as up to date as possible, that we're working with the Pacific Islander Task Force, who has already submitted edits for how to best cover American Samoa communities and different Pacific Islander communities. And I can tell I'm running out of time, but I have a lot to say on this subject, and so we can talk more if you would like. Thanks.
Thank you, Julia. In the interest of time, we're going to do one more question for VP of Civic Engagement, and then we'll move on to VP of Finance questions. So many journalists are organizing and unionizing to hold leaders accountable for DEI efforts. What is AAJA's role in supporting these efforts? And Julia, go ahead.
Sure. So AAJA's role in supporting these efforts is, I think, inherent. Inherently, we are all people of color, journalists of color in newsrooms, and ultimately what these reckonings are fighting for are things that we have been fighting for as an organization and as a group of people for a very long time. And so hearing from the different groups, I know, as part of the JOC Slack, what some folks have needed has been very tangible. They need spaces to organize. They need advice on campaigns, best ways to roll out communication. We are all media experts, and we're all in a position to be able to give this advice, to give these spaces, and to facilitate the kind of work that needs to happen in newsrooms now. I think what AAJA can do is provide spaces on Slack. It can provide forums off the record that will help folks organize. I think Organizing 101, while we do have a lot of media skills in our wheelhouse, advocacy is one that we all feel a little bit more tenuous about, right? So how do we have a conversation where we are talking to folks about riding that line, that we are absolutely advocating for ourselves as people of color and as human beings, first and foremost, but also as journalists? And that, I would love to dive into that with AAJA backing all of these efforts in newsrooms up. Thanks.
Just again, for the sake of our audience, if you could just repeat the question one more time.
Sure. So the question is, many journalists are organizing and unionizing to hold leaders accountable in DEI efforts. What is AAJA's role in supporting these efforts?
Well, let me say what our role isn't. We shouldn't just be putting out statements that we stand with our unions. As part of SAG-AFTRA, I am the union representative in my KOMO newsroom here in Seattle, Washington. So I know firsthand what it's like to be somebody who has to understand not just my perspective, but goes out of the way to understand someone else's perspective. So whenever I approach a situation, I always ask, so what is the other side thinking? And I think that's been invaluable in the way I've been able to negotiate and also navigate various newsrooms throughout my career. As for AAJA's role, let's follow up and not just put together another social media campaign because I've learned firsthand that everything on Slack is public, okay? Let's just assume there's nothing private anymore. But let's go back to relationship building. Let's be a part of these unions. I'm not saying we have to join them, but let's go to each head and call them and say, let's talk. When's the last time we were on the phone? Enough with the DMs, enough with just emails. Those are great starting points, but I want to build relationships. I want to understand firsthand what every one of our union representatives, what our union members, what our unions are thinking. Unless we do that, unless we understand and listen, we can't come up with solutions. But I'm telling you right now, I'm already in the fight. So let's bring AAJ along for that.
Thank you. We'll move on to VP of Finance questions now. The first question is going to start with Jin, and then we'll go to Ravi. And then the next question, Ravi will respond to first. So this question is, what is your understanding of AAJA finances, and how do they compare with other diversity affinity groups? How did you come to this understanding?
Thank you, Shirley. I think first, let's say AAJ currently is at a pretty stable financial situation, at least to this year, that we are currently running on budget between 1 million to 2 million. This has been the case over the past decade. And we have a very stable relationship with our current funders and our current sponsors. And through this year's convention, we can see more sponsors are buying more sponsorship packages from AAJ this year because of the DNI, pushes from their newsrooms. So speaking of that, compare us with other organizations. I happen also to be an ABJ member and an AHJ member for a while. And I've been to many of their previous conventions. Both organizations face different, financial challenges. NABJ has a much bigger membership base. At the same time, the organization is a little bit more clustered than AAJA. So AAJA is really running on a very lean margin. That is our strength. At the same time, it can be a little bit, risky if we keep going on that term with convention as the single source, big source of our programming. At the same time, looking at other organizations that are just, don't have enough sponsorships or don't have a stable membership base, our members are actually contributing a lot to AAJ's general support. And I would like to keep growing that. So hopefully, we will have Salesforce and CRM tools ready for us to move from National Builder to the new system, as well as, providing the real-time data to all AAJ leaders at affinity groups and chapter level as well. Thank you.
So as I understand it, AAJ's financial situation is tenuous at best. And I bring that up because I look at a $1 to $1.5 million revenue level, and it's been like that for the better part of 10 years. Now, you got to give a lot of credit to the folks that came in about 10 years ago during that previous downturn to shore up the financial situation, which had plummeted in 2010. But where we are today, we're certainly on the upswing compared to where we were, say, 5 years ago. But we're nowhere close to where NABJ is. NABJ is literally double our size. Their revenue is in the $2.5 million range. And moreover, NAHJ is also substantially larger than we are. In terms of membership, NAHJ has about 2 to 2.5 times the members that we have currently, and NABJ has 3 times the members. Now, to be frank with you, NABJ started roughly about the same time that AAJA did, and I know the Black community is larger than the Asian American community, but the reality is we have had hundreds, thousands of members over the years, and we haven't been able to retain them. And we have to be able to retain our own. And it can't just be when you're starting your career. It's got to be throughout your career. You have to have programs to engage folks that are veterans that can mentor the next generation. And this is part of the issue. We have lost track of some of these senior level journalists across the country. And many of them are my friends now who are working at the network level, who aren't engaged because we don't reach out to them. I mean, my good friend Vic Lee, who endorsed me, which I feel honored by, has been in the business for 50 years. We didn't even send out a note acknowledging his retirement. That man's a legend in San Francisco, an absolute pioneer, singing karaoke back in 1989. That's the thing. We've lost touch with our legends, and we need to get that back. In terms of finances, we also are not tapping into some of the bases. The Asian American community powers Silicon Valley, and yet we're not touching any of these businesses. Some of these folks would generously give if we ask.
Thank you. the next question is, what are your ideas for making AAJA financially sustainable, especially when the future of conventions are uncertain?
This is actually a great point, and actually a real reason that I'm running. The experiential model, which has done really well, and actually a lot of marketing companies prefer, and I deal with a lot of advertising agencies for our business. We have a lot of inroads to all the major agencies nationwide. Experiential is an easy way for them to write a $20,000 check and call it a day and say, hey, I've reached the Korean community, I've reached the Filipino community, I've reached the broader Asian community. That's not going to take place in 2020, and it's unlikely to take place in 2021. We really have to forecast 2 to 4 years out, and to think about where our revenue is today. The likelihood of us getting revenue the way we did in 2019 in the next couple of years is not going to happen. So we need to completely reinvent the way we engage members, and that is going to be through these kind of Zoom chats. One big issue that I've noticed I've been a platinum member for a number of years, is that unless you just want to willingly give financially to AAJA, which I have been since AAJA supported me for so many years, is that there's really no incentive other than you get a convention membership. Our platinum members are senior level journalists, and we don't engage them. We don't ask them to do a quarterly meet and greet with some of the executives. We can get the leaders of every single network, every single newspaper, you name it, if we want to have them in for special forums. But that's one way to draw memberships at a higher level, not just the regular base level, not just the gold level, but we should also be instituting more programs for the platinum level members. Those are folks who are paying a real premium to be a part of AAJA. So we've got to focus on making sure our base stays engaged and getting higher tiers of revenue in order to sustain AAJA for the long haul. And part of that is going to be a capital raise, which I'd love to initiate as well.
Thank you.
My ideas for making AAJA financially sustainable is through, first building our group membership. Our membership currently, after you sign up, you don't really get, onboarding system and also the auto renew system that should be embedded into our donation model that is currently not. And then at the same time, our leaders at chapter level and our AG leaders are not getting those reports on who are the ones who signed up this month and what the comparison between last year's at the same time and this year's same time, what those numbers are. By really just getting those numbers, getting those names would let us understand a little bit better on why people are leaving AAJA or why they're not renewing their membership. And at the same time, we need to be very clear of AAJA's membership. What does that mean? Supporting AAJA, what does that mean? We're not only going to, attract members who are in journalists, but at the same time, diversify our funding resources from people who believe in AAJA's mission, who believe in investing in AAJA means a long-term investment into AAPI representation in the media, at the same time, helping AAPI community in every level. Right. And then after that, building a long-term investment plan through endowment fund, we need at least $2 to $3 million to allow us to get a 7% investment feedback every year. And that can cover 3 programs that we currently running, ELP, Voices, and the JCamp at the $100,000 level. So I would like to do all of that in order to make us financially more stable in the next 2 years. Thank you.
Great. So the final question is, what are growth opportunities that you see for this organization? Give us one in the short term, so in the next 1 to 2 years, and one in the long term, the next 3 to 5 years and beyond.
I should start. So for the short-term wise, I think first thing we can do is completely using this year's virtual convention model to build a year-long programming in the next couple of years, which is great that we this year tried the virtual one, and it really took us, from the ground up to build everything that's completely out of blur without any experiences and not even enough experience from other partner organizations. But at the same time, for long term, after we hybrid those bridges between local level and the national level and provide more long-term and year-round programming, we will be able to attract more sponsors at the higher level, as well as showing the community that what we can do for them, not only in journalism, but also in storytelling, in film, and in a broader field, which we are also tackling this year in our programming as well.
So this is where I think my business background will be very helpful, because there are immediate opportunities working with organizations, like-minded organizations that want to support us. We are missing out on huge opportunities to work with conventional broadcast television owners. And we're talking about companies like Sinclair and Nexstar, among others, that are not part of our organization. We have about 10 large sponsors, and that's nearly not enough to get us to the next level. AAJA should be aspiring to not be where NABJ is or NAHJ. We need to surpass them. And if you see what's happened in the last 10 years, O&A has really taken all of our lunch. They have, heck, I mean, as Jen admitted, she goes to these other conferences. That shouldn't happen. We should have folks engaging in our programming. Why is that? It's because we're not doing enough to keep the senior level journalist engaged. And the only way to do that is to have more recruiters on site, more top level executives. I remember years ago when they had a Unity conference, which I would love to reinitiate, but it will take many years to rebuild those relationships. But I met with Marcus Broccoli, who was running the Washington Post at the time, and Marcus actually was so taken with what I was doing in television, he actually flew out to see me in San Jose, and we almost built a television startup together. And that's what happens when you bring top level executives from these media companies to AAJA to meet with our members. They're going to see, wow, look at the intellectual horsepower at AAJA. I want to partner with them. I want to find the talent within the membership and work with them in some capacity. And that's what can happen. But we need to diversify at all levels. And that can only happen by shoring up things at the local level, at the national level. And one of the long-term ventures that I really do want to create is taking advantage of that system we built called Catalyst, which I was involved at the very inception with Yvonne, a former president, who had asked me about my advice. Now, the way it's structured is not necessarily where I think it'll be most effective. I really do think we should be able to fund these startups and take a small piece of equity, say 1%, and if that one startup hits it big, gets sold off to Microsoft, sold off to another tech company, that nest egg turns into a huge amount of money for this organization, and then we can power Asian American media, which I think is our ultimate goal.
Thank you, Ravi. We are going to move on to the general questions now. So we'll start in the same order that we began with Michelle going first. And then the second question will start from the last person to speak. And then I'll explain this again with the next question. But the first question will be in the same order that we started with. So the question is, in recent years, abuse and sexual harassment have been essential topics in the discourse of workplace environments for journalists. How have you taken action to make AAJA and the journalism industry more of a safe, inclusive place for people of all genders?
Thanks for that question. I was the senior vice president when we came up with our code of conduct. I was a part of the group that wrote our code of conduct and spoke with legal representation to make sure that we are adequately protecting our members' safety and protecting our organization as well from potential issues that may come up with behavioral problems. I have upheld that code of conduct and made sure that it is being applied throughout our organization, and have been working on ways to make it more visible and more shareable publicly so that people don't have to read a lengthy legal document, but understand the culture that we're creating here at AAJA. All of our events, all of the work we do are strictly bound by a code of respect, civility, productivity, and including this campaign, we have been upholding this, what we expect from the behavior of our members and the attendees at all of our events. And we do not tolerate any sort of bad behavior, especially no behavior that has to do with sexual harassment or sexual assault, and that is completely not tolerated. And I have been proud to make sure that we are holding ourselves to a very high standard of our code of conduct that continues to be in place.
I want to repeat something that I just heard. We do not, as AAJA, tolerate sexual harassment or sexual abuse. That is first and foremost. If there was a hint that AAJA would not have a clear line in the sand about this thing, I would not be here. I was also part of the group that helped to forge our code of conduct. It was needed, it was necessary. I did a lot of research in my time working with other organizations to look at other code of conducts and how events are held across the board. Ravi brought up ONA. They have a code of conduct that they plaster all over their conference every year. That was something that we looked at as a model as well. How can we be as clear and transparent as possible that this is something that we do not tolerate, and make sure that we are signaling what our priorities are. And our priorities are absolutely the safety of our members. This kind of inclusivity needs to be something that is directly addressed. So to the question of what do I do personally to make safe spaces, it is to directly address problems. This is nothing within this realm of challenge. It will be swept under the rug or dismissed. Every single issue that has come up in the last couple of years around the Me Too movement, both in the journalism industry and in all of the journalism adjacent spaces, need to be directly addressed with. And I can promise and I can commit to continuing to call out bad behavior and make sure that we are tackling it in a productive way.
If I could be real and honest on this matter, I wasn't going to share this, but that question is so relevant. Even before Me Too, I was so proud of AAJA because we always talk about putting and shining the spotlight on other organizations or other groups as journalists, but we need to look within. And many of you may not be aware, but AAJA at a convention several years ago had a Me Too problem where one of our members allegedly sexually assaulted another member. And I'm so thankful that AAJA took immediate action and banned this member. And I was consulted and I was asked because I knew this person who allegedly had done this, and I also knew the victim. And I spoke openly and honestly. And I'm glad that I did, because we need to still work on this quote unquote bro culture that has fueled this. But at the same time, we cannot forget that Me Too is still going on. We need to empower this. We need to bring this to light. This example that happened at AAJA several years ago, I don't know if our entire organization knew about it. These are the stories that we should be using as teachable moments. Every year at a convention, we should highlight the importance of Me Too and where AAJA stands instead of sweeping issues under the rug. What an opportunity we have moving forward to look at our own house before putting others on blast or criticizing them. Let's not be hypocrites anymore. Let's take care of our own issues as well. Thank you.
I think I've done so much on this front at this on this issue in my personal career as the person that started diversity and inclusion task force at the Pulitzer Center. I am one of the few Asian women in nonprofit journalism grant business. And I'm really committed to this because I know how important having all gender heard, having women's voice heard, having non-binary voices heard, and for us to cover stories as journalists. But at the same time, I really see AAJA, having 40 years of history in our back, at the same time not matching up in some areas that with the gender representation. That's why 2 years ago I co-founded the Women and Non-Binary group as a group at AAJA, wanting to give people a place they feel safe, wanting to give members a space for them to talk about those issues. At the same time, knowing that there is someone advocating for them. When they're having an issue, they know where to go. They know who are the leaders they can call and they can email, they can get in touch with. And through our affinity group, we've done a lot on mentoring, on pitching panels about women representation at convention. And this year we are partnering with one of the leading gender minority groups, Authority Collective, at the convention panel. So I really am committed to this issue. At the same time, I just wanted to make sure that for voting me on the to be on the board means you have more people to call when you have those issues, meaning that I, as a workplace integrity trainer, I know how to negotiate on your behalf. I know how to like navigate those situations, and I would like to commit more as a VP of Finance in the future.
I'm very glad that this question came up. It's something that I haven't talked about too much publicly, but the television station group that I run today is America's most diverse television station group. And what that means is that we have women and minorities. We have groups that have been marginalized from all over America that now actually have a chance to put their voice out there. From the rural North Dakota communities that never had local programming, where they can put on local sports, they can put on rodeos, they can put on Native American programming. These are communities that never had service until I came into North Dakota. In San Francisco, we have 2 Vietnamese women that power 24/7 channels, local channels for the Vietnamese community, doing local news, information, doing COVID-19 related information every single day to serve the Vietnamese community. In Chicago, we have an African-American channel, the only one 24/7 channel in the city of Chicago to serve that community. Whether it's the Indian community, whether it's the Hispanic community, I have worked with virtually everybody in the industry to make sure that we have more diversity. And beyond that, I've been asked to testify before the FCC and Congress, because when you're in a position to speak about what's going on in the industry, they don't have stories like mine. I'm the only Indian American full power television station owner in the United States. I'm one of only 3 or 4 Asian American owners remaining. When it comes down to it, I'm the only Asian American member of the National Association of Broadcasters. They don't have people like us at the table. And again, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And that's a reality for all of us. And this is why I really want to make a push for AAJA to be at the table. When the Comcast-NBC merger happened, Comcast came to us in San Francisco and said, hey, we'll give you guys $10,000 cash, $90,000 in kind. And then a couple months later, they sent us a letter saying, hey, do you guys want to support our merger? And it left the board in peril because here's one of our biggest sponsors. And what we ended up doing was nothing, which was great. They basically bought our silence. And that's an issue. We need to be the go-to venue for Asian American media. And we're not that right now. They circumvent us, and that can change. And that can only change with the leadership that you see on the Zoom call, the leadership that's intact right now, and the local level. We have the membership to do it. And you certainly have my assurance that I'm going to push diversity and inclusion forward.
Great. Our next question, for this question, we'll go in reverse order. So Robbie will respond first, then Jin, then Jonathan, Julia, and Michelle will go last. This question is, how do you plan on supporting local chapter leaders as they try to grow and retain membership?
I have a lot of ideas here for the local chapters. I think, first of all, I think Jonathan alluded to this. We do have some zombie chapters out there, and we have to flesh that out. And maybe that means consolidation. Perhaps we don't have a specific chapter for one locale. Perhaps we do something with a broader region. But we have seen small chapters thrive. I mean, I look at AAJ Sacramento, and I'm blown away at how stable they are. And that's because leadership there. You have mature leadership, folks that are veterans that understand the industry, builds those long-term relationships, and have sent templates. So what we need to do is, if you vote me in for this position, the first thing I'm going to do is talk to all the chapter leaders and get to know best practices and see what San Francisco is doing, what New York is doing, what Texas is doing, and figure out the best mechanisms. We used to have training for all the chapter leaders, and that's dissipated. We need to get back to that because a lot of the stuff is not innate. Most of us are working journalists. We're not out there fundraising, and we have to have the basic fundamentals and be able to secure partnerships with like-minded corporations. And they understand what we represent, and they should if they don't already. And I think this is how we grow the base, how we engage more membership, retain our membership, and grow the pot for all. So AAJ becomes an organization that not just rivals NABJ and NAHJ, but soars beyond them because we have the horsepower to do it.
I think not every chapter knows who are their members and on a timely basis. That's one simple question that we need to solve at the national level. We need to really implement those tools to help those chapters to empower them to do their job. And I would not, count any less of all the chapter leaders have been doing for their chapter in the past. But at the same time, what are the things that national level can supply them to allow them more freedom and giving them the tools to help them understand how to fundraise and how to do those things. Chapters don't talk with each other on a daily basis. That AAJA National can do, which is like getting all those treasurers together. And many treasurers are not even members at this stage. Really cultivating the space for people to teach each other what does it mean to be in a financial position at AAJA's chapter, and what do you need and what kind of things we need to do to draw this money into general operation support, and we can certainly do that through giving clear, onboarding and retention systems at the national level. At the same time, helping chapters to understand what's needed and what are the fundraising tips we can provide, and at the same time, allowing chapters to talk with each other. Thank you.
Again, for Artie and Shirley, if you don't mind, just please ask the question again, please.
Yes, the question is, how do you plan on supporting local chapter leaders as they try to grow and retain membership?
As I've said from the very beginning, that is one of my pillars. It's something I've been working on at every single stop that I've been, and whether it's Chicago, Minneapolis, Boston, and now Seattle. I'm all about empowering our local leaders. At the end of the day, I want to be very clear. If I'm elected VP of Civic Engagement, it's not about what the local chapters can do for national. It's what national can do for local chapters. I want to say right now, I am so sorry if you are a local leader and you've been putting in the work on the ground, toiling, and you haven't been acknowledged, that you haven't been getting the support and the resources that you need. We need to change that from day one. The local chapters are our lifeblood, and we have to build off of that. I also want to set a very clear standard. On the flip side of this is, we're not interested in you just having a title of president and vice president and so on and so forth. I am going to go to every single chapter and ask, do you still want to be a part of this organization? Because if you do, we have to create a culture of being able to measure success. I want autonomy for our local chapters. And every chapter has a unique, wonderful story. And we need to know about that. But at the same time, how to create a baseline? And that baseline, in my opinion, just has not been there. And on top of that, we haven't had anyone to hold our local chapters accountable. And I think creating this new culture, not one of get it done or else, but what can we do to support you though, where you, again, recommit to this organization and the vision. That's what we need to do. That's what this VP of Civic Engagement is responsible for.
So having been a local leader who struggled with exactly what we're talking about here, disengagement and declining membership, I can say that two things that local leaders need for support are a good team and money. And with that in mind, I think there's a lot we can do if those are our two goals. Again, we will all need to be on the same page that this is what folks need to succeed. I think the pandemic has offered us an opportunity to better connect with each other. We are getting more comfortable in these virtual spaces. We are finding ways to work not just from home on journalism, but on community building. And AAJA very much sits in this intersection of work, life, and family. And so using what we're learning now, I think will help us to better support our chapters, to be better connected with our chapters, to make sure that our conversations are a two-way street, not national dictating to local, but exactly like what Jonathan said. It's how can national help support local? If it's money you need, here are some templates for some events. If it is a team that you need, if it's human resources, what can we do to help recruit a board or a team or a committee, whatnot, to get you what you need to get the work you want to get done? Should we be setting SMART goals for chapter leaders to really frame their work for the year so that they can achieve those goals in a way that makes the most impact. There's so much that we already have here in our brains, in our wheelhouse through ELP, actually, just a shout out, a program that I'm very grateful for, that absolutely we can instill and infuse into our chapter leaders that will help them support the work that they want to be doing. Thanks.
As the first senior vice president of AAJA, whose job was to bridge between chapters and affinity groups and make sure that the infrastructure is there, I know the real challenge of keeping our chapters and affinity groups supported and making them feel connected and doing our job at national to do our part and make sure that we're there for all of our chapters and affinity group leaders. We can do a better job, and we have been doing a lot over the past several years to improve that. We are coming up with a better communication process, actually thanks to the work of Shirley. She has been really connecting all of the leaders in the AAJA chapters and affinity groups in a much more communicative way, and I think all that is really great. I am very focused on making sure the infrastructure is there to enable this sort of connection and communication. That means over the next 2 years, we need to find a way off of Nation Builder, which is the current system that is actually tripping up a lot of our chapter and affinity group leaders' ability to do their work and actually volunteer and make the most impact for their organizations. We need to find a way off of that and find a new on-ramp onto a much more sustainable and easier way for everyone to communicate and connect. And we need to do a better job of tracking the data of chapter and affinity group leaders who have served in leadership position and then left. So many times new leaders come into a chapter presidency role or an affinity group director role, and they've never done chapter leadership before, and they're kind of left with a burned out past leadership who doesn't have enough bandwidth to help them on board onto this role. And with better data tracking at the national level, we can actually really support our chapters and affinity group leaders so that they could track the people who have come before them, continue to communicate with them, and it could be as easy as finding where they are and where they live and what their email addresses are. And this is a type of capacity that we don't have at the current moment, but that we're working really hard on to build. We have been working on this over the past year and a half, and we will continue to do so until this actually materializes. And I'm very much committed to making sure that the infrastructure is there to allow our chapter and affinity group leaders to be the best volunteers that they want to be.
The last question we are pulling from the chat from Troy. How would you rate AAJA's engagement and outreach with ethnic and multicultural media outlets that serve diasporic communities? And we're going to reverse the order once again. So Michelle is going to be our first respondent.
This is a really great question and something that we have asked multiple times of ourselves. Are we engaging our community enough in a way that is really digging deep into the expertise within our AAPI community? We made big strides in 2016 when we had our first major presidential candidate forum, and we had more than 24 different AAPI civic groups work with us to host this forum. That's where President Bill Clinton came and spoke in Vegas. We started laying down the groundwork at that time to have shared communications and pull on each other's expertise. And over the years, I think we've kind of found ways to allow our chapters to pull from those sorts of national connections as well, especially helping people find the right contacts to call and find the right experts to develop sources in their coverage. This is an area where I would love to work with the incoming VP of Civic Engagement to really improve our outreach to ethnic media and the communities, the expertise within our community. AAJA is working on launching an AAJA Speakers Bureau, which will be highlighting experts throughout our community. And I think that we can do a really great job of highlighting the brain trust that exists in ethnic media sources. And I would love to work with the incoming VP of Engagement to make sure that we are fulfilling that part of our mission.
So to rate AAJA's engagement and outreach, I would say it's not that great. I have been talking to a lot of our Pacific Islander members, specifically Tomas Mangonia, who you're only going to hear from more. He is a young man that I worked with at the Bay Area level who came to me And I'm so grateful that he did, because he really wanted to let me know and let AAJA know that he, as a Pacific Islander, did not feel like AAJA was an inclusive space for him, but he wanted to work on it. He wanted to be a part of the solution. 3 years later, he launched the Pacific Islander Task Force, which we now have, that was just launched a couple months ago. And Lauren, Anita, Rachel, they are getting down to work. This is what AAJA inspires. And so through talking with them, they've also done a lot of research with why more veteran journalists in the PI spaces haven't in the past felt that AAJA was an inclusive space. So there's a lot that we can learn here. And ultimately, if I were to be elected, I do have a 3-part plan on how we could be a more inclusive space for not just Pacific Islanders, but other communities that don't feel like AAJA is a space for them. I think we need to be reflective as a community, and we need to have a restorative conversation, and then we need to be constructive and put together a plan around how we can better message our inclusivity, our diversity in our members. What the hell is Asian anyways? That was a theme of last year's Hella Asian. I think if you really think about it, if you see kind of the communities in which we skew, we are not as diverse as we want to be, even within our own kind of definition of Asian. So I'm really excited to get my hands dirty in this work and to do more of it, because I think we need to walk the walk when it comes to this. Thanks.
Shirley, this is exactly part of my wheelhouse and something that I've been intentionally working on for years. Again, during my time in Chicago, Minneapolis, Boston, now Seattle, especially my last stop in Boston, part of my entire purpose and call in life is to reach out to the poor and the marginalized communities. And in many cases, the ethnic media in Boston, in Chicago, in Minneapolis are serving our immigrants, the ones who are voiceless, the ones who struggle with speaking English, the ones who are made fun of, the ones who are being gentrified. For example, in Boston's Chinatown, Chinatown is a box, yet a lot of non-Asians think Asians are doing so well because all of the mainland new money tech Chinese students are going to Harvard and MIT, and they think all Asians are doing well. When in reality, I was working with the Boston Chinatown Neighborhood Group, the Boston Chinatown Neighborhood Center, who focused on helping Chinatown. Those are the stories our ethnic media has been covering and has been focused on. And that's exactly why in Boston, I helped bring together that panel of media experts from the Boston Globe, NBC, so many different platforms in front of the local nonprofit leaders, because they needed to know we were there to help tell their story. I've been doing the outreach already for years, and there's a voracious appetite and need. At the same time, what an opportunity for us, Michelle, to learn from our local community advocacy groups that are serving these communities in the dark. And as Julia said, what does it even mean to be Asian now? And that's a question I've been tackling, because I've been working with the ethnic media who say, no, the stories you focus on in the mainstream press are not the stories that matter to us. Let's have AAJA as an organization represent everyone in our community.
I'm glad this question is being asked. As an immigrant coming to America, I am very tapped into those multicultural media. This year, as PI task force just formed a couple months ago, I'm the one reached out to them directly from the programming and asked them to provide more ideas for the National Convention on Pacific Islander specific topics. And we have actually 2 panels secured for them on investigative reporting, and as well as, basic 101s on how to report on PI. And I think it's so important for us to recognize there is a fundraising and financial opportunity there for us to be more involved in that space. Currently, AAJA is not very involved in there, but what we can do as a 501c3 and as a place that we have the ability to talk to the current founders that are actually also interested in getting into news desert, getting into those areas that the current community are very underserved, and just building a better, democratic culture of the country. And I think we can definitely tap into those and talking with more groups at the same time, really providing AAJA as a resource for them as the first step, and then seeking out opportunities through that process. That'll be really important for us. Thank you.
I am very glad this question got asked. I think AAJA can do a lot better with this. And I know we've had some different outreach programs to do some media training hands-on. I've been involved with some of those training sessions over the years at different conventions. The reality is we're not doing nearly enough to reach ethnic media. And I would know this firsthand. My television stations actually power about 35 AAPI related media channels. And even non-AAPI as well. I mean, we have Puerto Rican launching in Orlando. We have Somalian programming I know of in Columbus, Ohio. There's Vietnamese in Houston. If you go to Los Angeles, you will see 20 plus Chinese channels, 20 plus Vietnamese, 30 Hispanic. You'll see a dozen Armenian. The diversity is out there, but we're not tapping into it. And it's a huge part of what I do every single day. I know the principles at the largest Korean television groups, the largest Vietnamese television groups, the largest Indian American group, something that I run personally. So when it comes to reaching AAPI communities and other minority groups, I'm already doing this at the local level. And part of our success is that these groups have been totally ignored. We're not doing enough in mainstream, and there's that alienation. And we can actually provide proper methods for these folks to do true journalism and not stuff that's slanted, because there's a lot of slanted stuff that's out there as well. And I think one of the services that AAJA can provide is showcasing what it is to be a journalist and how to navigate the landscape, because a lot of these folks don't have the basics. And I think we can work hand in hand with them, and this would actually be a great base for future members.
Thank you, everyone, for your responses. That concludes the question section of our event today. I know we're running over time, but we have closing statements to get to, and this time we're going to go in reverse order once again. So Ravi is going to start, and then we'll go in reverse from there. So Ravi, go ahead.
Well, thank you all for, first of all, your support. It's been very meaningful. I started in AAJA in 2001 without a sense of how my journalism career was going to go. I really struggled, and I discussed some of that during the AAJA call we had the other night. And, I was fortunate that we caught a break during the last downturn, and now this is the third downturn that I've seen in my career. We have to take stock at how we approach things at AAJA. And what that means is, because we have a changing climate, because we don't even know how things are going to move forward when it comes to the presidential election, it's going to impact our nonprofit directly. How are we going to be taxed? How we generate revenue? All of our models are going to change moving forward. These experiential events have disappeared. We're going to go to a virtual model for at least the next 12, 18, perhaps 24 months. And that means we have to rethink everything, which means as VP of Finance, I'm going to sit down with every single chapter head, talk about their best practices, talk about where their weaknesses are. We need to re-engage the membership, get more folks on board from the student level, get our mid-career folks to support us once again, and then find new sources of revenue. And the only way we can do that, yes, we need to tap into nonprofits. Yes, we need to tap into our existing base. But there are a flurry of different companies and organizations that have philanthropic foundations that we can work with. We've worked with GM, we've worked with Ford, we've worked with different groups, and some of these folks are struggling right now, and we've actually lost some of these sponsors in that realm. And so that means we need to take stock of everything going on. And I think one of the larger strategies that I will bring to the table is this concept of a true endowment, where we're going to do a capital raise of $10 million. And we'll start there, and hopefully we can go beyond that. And the goal is to get high net worth Asian Americans and other people that believe in our mission to give us funding, and not just a one-time annual contribution. We get something from them and a commitment that they're engaged and they have a stake in AAJA. And that capital will go towards funding initiatives that will bring additional capital to AAJ. We have to think of this as entrepreneurs do. The incubator models out there are very successful. We have so many talented people at AAJA. That's why I've been around for 20 years. I'm blown away when I get the Facebook messages from colleagues from years past who say, hey, I would love to be in AAJA, but XYZ happened, and I feel disconnected. These are super talented people doing all kinds of things. We need to bring them back in the fold. And the only way we can do that is through programming that's relevant and having aspirational functions where we can look 5, 10, 20 years down the line. The impact we take today, the measures we take today will help grow our base. And beyond that, the folks that really support us, the platinum members, we need to get these guys involved. They are folks that love AAJA, but I don't see enough inclusion of these folks, and we need to have more member ideas exchanged. We have, again, a huge base of folks, and I'm very appreciative that we've had these different affinity groups because there's a lot of groups within AAJ that feel marginalized. So we need to make sure from top to bottom we take stock of what's going on and build from there.
Hi, AAJA family. I think I already demonstrated my experience as a founder of international journalism. I know how to spend money. At the same time, I'm also a fundraiser in nonprofit for the over 8 years. So I know AAJA from inside out as a convention chair, at the same time as a affinity group leader. I would like to combine all the knowledges and experience together to serve AAJA as the next VP of Finance. I know how to get things done and done well with AAJA. I've closed the sponsorships for AAJA. I maintain a relationship with partners for AAJA. I just want to help AAJA and really be at the position that can fuel our other programming and other communication and everything, building that strong foundation for AAJA. So I would love to earn your vote by providing a track record in AAJA to connect the members to funding resources, being able to get things done at the convention, as well as, knowing how to grow membership and knowing how to fundraise, which is a really hard job to do in nonprofits those days. And, I have all this experience. At the same time, I really care about an AAJA. I've been putting down the work for AAJA in the past few years, and I would love to earn your support. Thank you.
First of all, I'm deeply humbled at the amount of support, people who I've been in touch with for the past 20 years, and people I've just met trusting me with a run at this position. People like NBC's Richard Louis, CBS's Weijia Jiang, ABC's Juju Chang, LA ABC's David Ono, Vic Lee, longtime reporter with KGO in San Francisco, also George Kiriyama, a manager in Las Vegas, Bobby Calvan, Stefan Kim, who are with Media Watch, and to meet some of the small market broadcasters and also people with young AAJ saying they come out to believe in my vision is extremely humbling and gratifying, and makes me want to work that much harder to be that guy that helps bring sort of the divisions that have formed in the past few years again, back together again. We are truly an AAJA family, and we are stronger when we have a united front. I want to use this time to reach out again to NABJ and NAHJ and let them know, I'm sorry if mistakes were made, but that was before my watch. I really believe I have a fresh perspective and I can go in there because I already have relationships with the key players. How can we do this alone at a time when Black Lives Matter so much more? We need to be at the table at that conversation. We need to show that we really do want to stand and walk with these organizations, and that the relationships at the end of the day are what really matter. I also want to uplift the sports task force. A lot of these members, and especially the women in this group, are some of the most influential, visible voices. Why aren't we leveraging that even more? They want to be used. They want to give back. Let's give them a reason. I want to help us do that. I want to focus again on where I've been thriving behind the scenes, and that's mentoring. There are so many young people right now who who don't have a mentor, and there's so many veterans who want to give back. Let's give everyone a reason to double down, get back into this organization, and not walk alone. Thank you.
We're at a turning point in our organization. We need to go all in and make AAJA more inclusive to everyone in membership and would-be membership. This election has energized a ton of people, like Jonathan just said. I think the support coming out has been really, really great to hear. People are excited, they're hopeful, but they're also fearful, and frankly, some are pissed. Between Jonathan and I, we've talked to a lot of you. And so I know I said this before, but when I talk about a real culture of deep listening, this is it. And again, this can't just happen around election time. We need to be building systems and creating spaces for this dialogue to happen on a more consistent basis. Leadership needs to hear our voices, and our voices must inform decisions. Otherwise, we are not being productive and we are just shouting into the void. I'm the only candidate that has more than a decade of leading newsrooms. I've led professional journalists, journalists of color, and AAJA chapter members through some of the most pivotal times in our industry's history. I would be honored if you'd allow me to serve you as VP of Civic Engagement. And in the spirit of continuing this conversation, I am hosting an AMA on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern. So please consider a vote for me. Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you, AAJA.
Thanks so much for this opportunity to speak on this forum. I'm really glad that we have such a vibrant election, and I'm really inspired by this campaign. I'm super grateful for the energy and all the ideas. And I want to take this moment to personally ask each candidate here to please stay involved, regardless of whether you win. I've already asked each of you directly, and I really implore you, we need your ideas, we need your help, and we need the candidacy that you've brought. And I'm so grateful for each of you to spend this time to listen and to campaign and to really help our organization grow. This discourse is so healthy, and our organization is stronger for the work that you guys have been doing just in the past few weeks. And I'm so thankful for that. And please stay involved. And thank you for everyone who's already tuned in today to this really great forum. Being president of AAJA has been one of the most rewarding experiences for me. I joined this organization when I was 18. I was a Korean kid who grew up in Guam, and then I ended up in Atlanta in college. I had no idea how to start a journalism career. And I connected with my AAJA Atlanta chapter. And since then, I have just grown to really love this family and lean on this family so much. And I decided that after I graduated college and I got my first job, the moment that I could, I would give back to this organization. And that's what I've been doing since I really got my first job. I joined the national board in 2013. And over that time, I have helped transform this organization. I have helped reinvigorate our national board and restructure the organization to anticipate the future changes in our industry. And we're a much more inclusive organization because of the work that we've been doing over the past decade or so. And we have become increasingly vocal and visible on the issues that matter to our AAPI community, and I'm very proud of that. Next year is our 40th anniversary. AAJA needs to learn and appreciate our history, but think hard about who we're going to be in the future in the next 40 years and beyond. Are we going to be tied to what used to work decades ago? Or are we going to be a trailblazing organization that innovates and brings creative solutions to the challenges that we're facing in the organization as well as the industry? We need to be the latter. We need to push our organization forward to new and greater heights through the next 40 years and beyond. And I want to be that president to help us get there. And lastly, I just want to say that I'm really sad not to be able to see you guys in person. I'm sure all of you have been getting the on this day notices on Facebook and the throwback posts from everyone reminding us that we would have seen each other in person this week. In fact, today would have been the closing day of our initially scheduled DC convention. And it's really heartbreaking for me to not be able to see everyone. It's like my favorite time of the year, and I'm sure it is for all of you too. So I'm really sad not to see you guys, but I really, really hope to see you at the virtual event. Doing the virtual convention has been one of the biggest challenges, probably my whole time at AAJA, because it's kind of like writing the manual to build a plane And then while doing that, you're flying it and you're also trying to land it and get passengers onboarded safely and also get tickets from them. It's a huge undertaking, and we've only done it because we really want to provide this community for our members. When the pandemic first hit, our members told us, we need help. We're losing jobs, we're losing gigs. We are so unstable. I'm furloughed, I'm laid off. I need help. I need my AAJA family. I need to go to convention. And so we created this virtual experience. It's completely new. It's going to feel completely different, but we did it just for you. And I hope that everyone attends, and you can get the tickets at aaja20.org. This is the type of work I've been doing for AAJA. When there's a need, I find a solution to help address that need. And I want to continue doing that in my second and last term as AAJA president. I know I'm running unopposed, but I want to reiterate, I don't take your vote for granted. I really don't. And I'm truly, truly grateful to serve in this role. It's one of the best experiences of my life and the most humbling and biggest learning experiences that I've had. And I love this organization. It's changed my life. And I really hope that you can support me and vote for me as for my second term as AAJA president. Thanks.
Thank you to all the candidates for your participation today, your thoughtful answers. Thank you to everyone who's joined us and stuck with us, even though we've gone way over time. But I hope that it was helpful for you to hear about some of the candidates' platforms and their thoughts on some of the issues we're facing. And please keep in touch if you have other questions. You know how to reach us. And we're excited to see how the rest of this election goes. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, AAJA.
I made toast for you, Dad, but he doesn't want to.